Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first webinar for fiscal year 2021 webinar series titled Soaring to Employment with SSA Work Incentives and Benefit Planning. My name is Pam Hine, Senior Project Associate with the SOAR TA Center, and I will be your moderator today. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping items to review. A quick disclaimer. The views, opinions, and content expressed in this presentation do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of the Center for Mental Health Services, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. As a reminder, your lines will be muted throughout the entire webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for download on the SOAR website in about 1 week. There are a couple of ways you can download the PowerPoint slides. One way is to go to the top left of your screen and clicking File, then Save, then Document. Or visit the SOAR website at soarworks.prainc.com. Click Webinars on the left sidebar and choose today's topic. You'll also be able to download our updated issue brief as well. So just to go over some of the learning objectives. It is our intention that by the end of this webinar, you will learn about SSA work incentives and benefits planning. We'll share some key strategies and resources for accessing SSA work incentives and benefit planning in the community. We'll learn from a SOAR beneficiary who has utilized SSA work incentives and benefits planning to begin work in the community as well. So here is our agenda, and I'll talk a little bit about our presenters today. So first we have John Marshall. John is the Chicago Metropolitan and Northern Indiana Area Work Incentives Coordinator for SSA. He is also the SOAR and Homeless Coordinator for the same geographical area. John specializes in policies regarding helping people with disabilities who wish to work and in assisting agencies looking to help individuals with disabilities in obtaining employment. Lucy Axon Miller, she may be joining us a bit later today, but Lucy is with the she's a technical assistance liaison with the Virginia Commonwealth University's National Training Center in Virginia. She has a lot of experience with helping individuals through training obtain disability benefits and work incentives. She has many years of experience providing employment services and support to SSA beneficiaries who have developmental disabilities and also individuals with serious mental illness. She is a recognized expert in effective job development, and she has significant knowledge of individuals who experience homelessness by serving more than 10 years on the board of directors of the Louisville Coalition for the Homeless. Then we'll be hearing from Byron Kish, who is the Director of Disability Benefits and also the Colorado SOAR State Lead with Easterseals in Lakewood, Colorado. Joining him will be Pablo Sandoval, who has many years of experience as the Senior Director of Employment Services with Easterseals, and also Justin, who is a SOAR beneficiary who works with Easterseals on discussing employment and utilizing SSA work incentive supports as well. So welcome all of our presenters. We're happy to have you and hear more from you today. So unfortunately, Asha, our project officer, is not able to join us. So what I would like to do is just do a brief welcome on her behalf. So on behalf of SAMHSA, I would like to welcome you to the SOAR webinar titled Soaring to Employment with SSA Work Incentives and Benefits Planning. October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, which is sponsored by the U.S. Department of Labor. This year's theme is increasing access and opportunity and celebrates the 30th anniversary of the American with Disabilities Act, the ADA, and the 17th anniversary of NDEAM. The SAMHSA SOAR TA Center is proud to celebrate this month and promote employment for SSI and SSDI beneficiaries. Today's webinar will give you many practical tips and tools to help you better understand how to assist SOAR beneficiaries with accessing employment resources in the community. And she'd like to welcome also and thank the presenter. So on behalf of Asha with SAMHSA, we welcome you to this webinar today. So just a few facts. To achieving equity in employment with people with disabilities, we know that individuals with serious mental illness are underrepresented in the workforce and also utilizing SSA work incentive programs. So approximately 1 out of 10 individuals with an SMI are employed. And again, we know that the purpose of today's webinar is to shine a light on this and share SSA's work incentives to increase the numbers of individuals seeking employment. And much of what we do with SOAR is to debunk myths around Social Security beneficiaries, and that includes work. And we know that individuals with mental illness can and do work, and we want to make sure that that is encouraged. So by sharing some of the knowledge and expertise today, we'll make sure that this is something that does increase in our communities. So we know that we working for more than just a paycheck, right? It's about self-worth and self-confidence. It really defines our role as a person in the community. And again, that social interaction of connecting to others in the workplace, adding structure to our daily life, and also a critical step in recovery. So to that end, we share some myths that are common out there and also counter that with some facts so that individuals who with disabilities who want to work see that it is possible and being done. So to that end, the TA Center has created a really useful resource tool that's really designed to bust those myths, and it's designed for SSA beneficiaries and also case managers as you work with individuals and start those conversations about returning to work too. So you'll find that also on the SOAR website, and we think you'll find that to be pretty handy. And that's just one of the many tools that we have in addition to our newly updated issue brief, which is available on the SOAR website as well. So kicking things off will be John Marshall, who will provide a review of some of the more common work incentives and share some of his thoughts on assisting individuals with disabilities to utilize those work incentives. John?
Good afternoon, everyone. In my presentation, I will be going over the policies and laws surrounding what happens when one is receiving benefits from Social Security and they start working. There are several policies that encourage people to work while they are on SSA benefits to help protect them in terms of income and resources and medical coverage while they work, and become more self-sufficient while doing so. As we talk about employment supports, we are going to go over a ton of information here. What you are about to get here are the possibilities, the things that are available to you when you want to work, protecting your eligibility for cash payments or health care. Later on, you'll be hearing presentations from others concerning benefit planning programs that can help you make individualized decisions based on the available employment supports that will work in your particular situation. Now both Social Security disability insurance and supplemental security income have employment supports that are similar. The They are subsidies and special conditions, unsuccessful work attempts, impairment-related work expenses, plans to achieving self-support, expedited reinstatement, and ticket to work. And we'll go over all those in a few minutes. Now, one of the forms that we use, especially when we're dealing with people that are receiving Social Security disability insurance, that's that check that comes on the 3rd of the month or sometimes some alternate Wednesdays of the month, is this form SSA 821. It's a work activity report. And basically what we use it for is to try to figure out whether an individual can be eligible for some of the work incentives and employment supports that we have so they can work and maintain, as much as their income as possible and their medical benefits as possible. Now, when SSA looks at work, we look at something that is called substantial gainful activity, the value of the work that you are actually performing, in some case, regardless of what you are actually being paid. To us, you're not disabled if you are doing activity that could be valued at more than $1,260 gross a month. It is different from when you receive your first monthly check, when you receive your first monthly check from SSI, however, and I'll explain that more about that SSI later. Now, subsidy and special conditions are, basically where the employer, and this is what subsidy is, where the employer knows about your disability and is paying you pretty much at the same rate as everybody else, even though you're performing at a lower rate compared to everyone else. For example, if you have in a factory where where everybody's required to make 60 widgets, but then the employer knows because of your condition or knows because of your situation that you can only make 40, you only make that 40 while you're getting paid you paid as if you were making 60. That difference, we're going to look at the value of you performing and making 40 widgets as opposed to 60 widgets, and look at that as the income that you're having rather than the actual income that you're being paid. So we're looking at the value of your work. Special conditions are similar in that sometimes the employer really doesn't even know that you're getting any support from people that are surrounding you, and you're not doing the same work as everybody else, but you're getting some sort of support from people around you or outside of the place that you're working to try to help you do your job. We're going to be asking them, what type of what your work is and what your work is entailing, and determine the value of your work as opposed to what you're being paid there. And so that's the difference. I mean, that's the whole issue of subsidies and special conditions. They really come down to, the value of what your work really is as opposed to what you're really getting paid. An unsuccessful work attempt is an effort to do work in employment or self-employment which you stopped or reduced to working to below that $1,260 a month level after a short time, like within 6 months, because of your impairment or the removal of special conditions related to your impairment that you needed in order to help you work. Ultimately, it comes down to you being unable to work for any period of time and had to stop because of your impairment or to stop at those special considerations. Now, impairment-related work expenses are basically if you have to come out of your pocket for anything because of your disability, and without it, you being able to work, it's an impairment-related work expense. And we'll take that, whatever you come out of your pocket for, off of the wages that we're evaluating so that we can come to the actual value of your work. For example, if a beneficiary is earning $1,200 a month in gross wages, but they making a monthly copay for the medication of $75, and they absolutely need, and it's because of their disability, and they absolutely need this in order to work, then we would subtract that $75 from the $1,200 to come up with the actual wages that we're going to be attributing to them as $1,125 a month. That's what we're going to be counting, as opposed to the full $1,200, because they're coming out of their pocket for that $75 because of their impairment and because of their impairment, and they absolutely need it in order to work. Make sure we're not. Hold on. Now, a plan for achieving self-support is a plan where someone is trying to achieve an occupational objective, and they have income other than supplemental security income that they can use in order to try to achieve that goal. For example, we have a woman who had hearing impairment, and as a 16-year-old and 17-year-old, and their father passed away because they were a police officer, and they got a pension from that father when their father passed away. The individual wanted to. This woman, the woman that had hearing impairment, wanted to become a teacher for the deaf, and so she wanted to go to Gallaudet University in order to learn how to become a teacher. And so she used the pension that she got from her father's passing away to try to pay for all the things she needed to do in order to try to achieve that goal. Pay for tuition, pay for books, pay for a vehicle to go back and forth. She had this equipment in order to try to help her deal with traffic, and equipment to help her deal with, somebody that was coming to her dorm room. All the stuff that she needed in order to try to achieve her occupational objective to become a teacher for the deaf. And so she did this, and we acted like that money that she used from her father's pension towards that goal as if it wasn't there, as if it was invisible. And so she was able to achieve the goal by using that income while we were paying her SSI, and to make sure her food, clothing, and shelter needs were being met while she was achieving the goal. And ultimately, she got everything paid for, did everything, and eventually became a teacher for the deaf. That's the issue that goes into a PESS. You're trying to achieve an occupational objective, and you're setting aside income that you have that we would normally charge in any other case to achieve that goal. Now, you can use all sorts of expenses in a PESS. It could be school or training expenses, tuition fees, books and supplies, uniforms, special clothing, safety equipment, tools, attendant care of child care expenses, transportation for work, employment services such as a job coach, supplies to start a business. Basically, anything you need in order to achieve that occupational objective can be used as expenses that could be excluded when we're doing a plan for achieving self-support. And then we can increase the amount of supplemental security income that you can receive while you're trying to achieve that goal. Now, there's a thing called expedited reinstatement of benefits. That is when your benefits are terminated because of work, and then you have to stop work. You have to stop work for any reason. Within 5 years, you'll be able to come right back on to Social Security and get payment while we make sure that you're still disabled. So basically, you can, within 5 years after you have even been terminated from benefits, within 5 years, if you have to stop, you can come right back on benefits without having to file all over again. Now, Ticket to Work is a voucher program, basically, where everyone who sees benefits over the age of 18 and under the age of 65 will receive this voucher in order to get services. And this voucher can be used to a number of organizations that we call employment networks that can help you get the things that you need in order to work, and even try to help you try to find an actual job. Because if they do help you find a job, they can get paid. So basically, you can potentially give this voucher over to an employment network, and there's a number of them, and we'll give you a list of them, if you are interested in Ticket to Work, and you can try to figure out which one is best for you and call them. And then if the organization feels that they may be able to work with you and be able to help you, in your endeavor in order to get a job, they will take you on as a ticket and basically give you the things that you need in order to try to help you to work. That's the issue of a ticket. And it's a free and voluntary service, and you can use the ticket if you choose, but there's no penalty for not using it. Now, you can get more information on the Ticket to Work program, including a list of approved employment networks. You can call 1-866-YOUR-TICKET. That is 1-866-968-7842, or call TTY 1-866-833-2967 between the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. Now, we're going to talk about a little bit about the issues of Social Security disability only employment support. So that's the check that you get, or normally will get on the 3rd of the month or alternate Wednesdays of the month. And they include what's called a trial work period, an extended period of eligibility, and a continuation of Medicare coverage and Medicare for persons with disabilities who want to work. Now, ultimately, the best way I can describe what happens when somebody works that's receiving Social Security disability insurance is to use an example. And we're going to use the example of Beyonce and Taylor Swift in this case. Let's say, and we don't want this to happen to them, Beyonce or Taylor Swift, falls down the stairs and hurts their back. And they would need to file for Social Security disability insurance benefits, and you probably better believe they probably paid enough FICA taxes in order to be insured for those benefits. But let's say, after a certain amount of time, either one of them starts feeling better, and they feel like they can go back and work again, and go back and do their concerts, and go back and go into the studio and make their and go back to the studio and make their records. They will be able to do that for at least 9 months and still get all of their Social Security check. And regardless of how much they earn, they can make $1 gazillion a month. Who knows what they make in a month, to be quite frank, when it comes to Beyonce and Taylor Swift. But when they can make a whole lot of money a month and still get their whole Social Security check for those 9 months. After that 9 months are over, or after those 9 months are over, we're going to ask Beyonce or Taylor Swift, hey, Taylor, are you earning and working and earning more than $1,260 a month? If you are, you're not going to be eligible for a check. If you aren't, then you would be eligible for a check. And that can go back and forth for 3 years. And then once they get to the end of their 3 years, if they're making more than $1,260 a month, then that's when we're going to consider their benefits to be terminated. But remember, we were talking about expedited reinstatement before. So if within those 5 years, after those 3 years of going back and forth, they have to stop working, they can come right back on benefits without having to file all over again. Also, they will be able to. So that means Beyonce and Taylor Swift will have at least 8 years and 9 months in order to try their hands out and working without having to file all over again. And they'll also continue to be eligible to receive their Medicare coverage for at least 8.5 years. So ultimately, that kind of explains what the issues I'm about to discuss right now. The trial work period, as I said, gives people 9 months, not necessarily consecutive, within a 5-year period, and they get the full SSDI benefit. Benefit continues regardless of earnings, and we only count a trial work month if they make more than $910 in gross earnings, or more than 80 hours of self-employment, if they will be considered trial work months. And you cannot begin before the month of entitlement or the month of filing, whichever is later. You are not eligible for disability benefits or trial work period, if you work at the substantial gainful activity level within 12 months of the start of your impairment and before we approve your claim for disability benefits. It is possible for your benefits to stop due to your medical recovery before you end of your trial work period. We do not apply trial work period work incentive rules when determining the service months in the trial work period. The extended period of eligibility, begins the month after the trial work period ends, and even if you are not working that month. And it's, like I said, it's the first 3 years of the extended period of eligibility. EPE is the reentitlement period. During the reentitlement period, if work or earnings are below substantial gainful activity, benefits are payable. And if work or monthly earnings are above substantial gainful activity, benefits are suspended, just like in the example that we used with Beyonce and Taylor Swift. The extended period eligibility ends with the later of the month of the first month before the first month of substantial gainful activity after the reentitlement period, or the second month after the month of disability cessation due to their engaging in substantial gainful activity. There's a cessation month and a grace period in terms of payment that happens when you go through working while you're on Social Security disability insurance. The cessation month is the first month the work activity and earnings exceed the substantial gainful activity after the trial work period month. After the trial work period. The grace period is 2 months immediately following the cessation month. Benefits are paid for the cessation month and the grace period, which are not necessarily whether or not the beneficiary is earning over substantial gainful activity. That means after the 9-month trial work period, you are going to have 2 extra months where you could potentially continue to receive payment even though you're working over that $1,260 amount. Although cash benefits may cease during the work, continued health insurance is possible. Most beneficiaries will work and continue to receive at least 93 consecutive months of Part A, Part B if enrolled, or Part D if enrolled, and there is no premium for the Part A. The 93 months start the month after the last month of the trial work period. To qualify, the beneficiary must already have Medicare and be working at the substantial gainful activity level but not medically improved. Once you get to the point where you're no longer eligible for premium-free Medicare coverage due to work, you may be able to buy into hospital insurance, which is available at $458 per month in 2020. And supplemental medical insurance Part B coverage is available for $144.60 a month in 2020. Now we're going to talk a little bit about supplemental security income only employment supports. And that is going to include the earned income exclusion, the student earned income exclusion, the special payments for persons who work under Section 1619A, and Medicaid while working under 1619B. Social Security does not count the first $65 of the earnings received in a month plus 1/2 of the remaining earnings. This means we count less than 1/2 of the earnings when we figure the SSI payment amount. I always say it's always in your best interest in terms of cash benefits for you to work when you're on SSI because you're always going to end up having more money. And more often than not, you're going to also be able to continue to receive your Medicaid as well, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. We apply this exclusion in addition to the $20 general income exclusion. We apply the $20 income exclusion first to any unearned income received. So we count less than half of the wages against any person's SSI once they receive their first check. And so they always end up having more money. You have to make more than $1,500 in order to get to $0 in SSI. Now, the student earned income exclusion is even better for for people that are under age of 22 and regularly attending school. We do not count up to $1,900 of your earned income per month when we figure the SSI payment amount. The maximum of the yearly exclusion of 2020 is $7,670. And that means that we won't take anything off of the SSI. You get your $783 in SSI if you're making under $1,900 a month or make less than $7,670 in a year. And to be regularly attending school means be in a college or university for at least 8 hours a week, in grades 7 to 12 for at least 12 hours a week, or in a training course to prepare for employment for at least 12 hours a week, 15 hours a week if the course involves shop practice, or for less than time than indicated for the above reasons beyond the student's control, such as illness, or homeschooling if instructed in grades 7 to 12 for at least 12 hours a week. Now, property essential for self-support we do not count resources that are essential to your means of support when we decide continuing your eligibility for SSI. So if you have resources that you need for your self-support while you're need for your self-support, we won't count that as a resource. Now, once you get your first check for supplemental security income, then we're no longer really looking at substantial gains in activity for you. We're looking at how much you're earning. And so once you get to that point, you're becoming something that we call 1619A, where you can maintain your Medicaid benefits if you're eligible for any amount of supplemental security income benefit. And you must meet all the eligibility rules, including the income and resource test. You can receive your, gross income and wages and SSI payment based on your wages and Medicaid at the same time under 1619A. Now, if you get to the point where you're making over that $1,500 and you're getting to $0 of SSI benefit, you will still be eligible for what we call Medicaid based on 1619B. And your eligibility will continue as long as you meet the basic requirements for income and resources, and we will continue your SSI payment in the same way as we did before. If your state provides Medicaid to persons on SSI, you will continue to be eligible for Medicaid. Each state has a Medicaid threshold, and in some states you have to go to public aid and go to the place where you go to Medicaid in order to let them know you're on SSI, so that you will continue to be able to get your Medicaid even though you might be over the $1,260 limit. You do not need to file a special application. Just keep us up to date on your work activity.
Hi, John. This is Pam. I think this is probably one of the best work incentives, in my opinion, because it shouldn't be a disincentive for individuals not to work because of fear of losing their health insurance. So for the sake of time, I just wanted to advance your slides to this very important resource that Social Security has. And I think if we have time at the end, we will be sure to come back to some of your work incentives. So I'm just advancing your slides. Could you just talk a little bit about the Red Book a little bit so folks can use this as a resource?
Yes, the Red Book is a comprehensive book on the myriad of work incentives that we have within the Social Security Administration. They try to help individuals with disabilities to work if that's what they want to do, and you could get that, through our website at www.ssa.gov/redbook and be able to pull it up, online, or you can have one a paper one actually mailed to you.
Oh, that's good to know.
Now beyond the, what I've talked about in terms of the work incentives, you can, and people are going to be talking about this later, that you have the access to people called benefit planners that can help you try to figure out what work incentives might be best for you, and what's going to happen to all of your benefits, whether it's your Social Security, your SSI, your Medicaid, your Medicare, your food stamps, stuff like that, to try to, so that you can make a informed decision whether you want to work at a particular level or not.
Great. John, thanks for your extraordinary level of knowledge. And folks can read more about work incentives in the Red Book and other resources that we also have available on the SOAR website. And to talk about benefits planning, this is the perfect time to introduce Lucy Miller with the Virginia Commonwealth University's National Training Center, who will talk more about WIPAs. Lucy?
Great. Thank you, Pam. I think this is very timely in the way that my presentation follows John's, because if you listened carefully to John's presentation, the first thing that becomes abundantly clear is that Social Security work incentives are pretty complicated. So, you know, for those of us who are on disability benefits and contemplating a return to work or involved in a return to work, it can get confusing. And so you need to connect with some people who can make all of this complex information understandable and can kind of hold your hand a little bit as you move through and experience things, and you can have someone explain things to you. So, Pam, would you let's see.
I can change your slides.
Yeah, that would be great. Do you mind?
No, just went to what is WIPA.
All right. There you go. You know, one of the things you probably learned from listening to John, too, is that Social Security land involves a whole lot of acronyms. And one that is important for everyone to know about is WIPA. That's Work Incentives Planning and Assistance. And this is a national program that's funded by the Social Security Administration to have a whole cadre of experts in what happens to the disability benefits when you go back to work, sitting all around the country and in the U.S. territories. And the folks who work within the WIPA projects are called CWICs, and another acronym that stands for a Community Work Incentives Coordinator. And these are highly trained people who can provide individualized, in-depth, employment-focused benefits counseling and work incentives planning to anyone between the ages of 14 up to full retirement age who receives a Social Security disability benefits. And we do cover all 50 states and the territories. And this program is a critical component of Social Security's larger national effort to help disability beneficiaries go back to work. So many beneficiaries, when they're applying for benefits, get the impression that, oh, if I get on the benefits, I'm never allowed to work ever again, and it could not be further from the truth. So many beneficiaries want to go back to work, and Social Security, of course, is very interested in doing things that they can to help people go back. So next slide. So how do you become eligible for WIPA services? And it's a broad eligibility, but there are some limits. So first of all, you have to meet Social Security's definition of disability or blindness and already be receiving Social Security benefits based on disability or blindness. Now, as John indicated, there's more than one program. You've got the Supplemental Security Income or SSI program, and you also have the disability benefits that were authorized under Title II of the Social Security Act. And that's like an insurance program where you can get Social Security disability insurance. You can even collect as a child of a disabled parent or a retired parent, that's CDB. You can also collect a disability benefit as a widow or a widower where you're collecting off of a deceased spouse. So these are big programs, and you can qualify for these benefits multiple ways. But to get WIPA services, you can't be in application status. And I know that's important for SOAR projects to hear because I know you guys do help people apply. WIPA services is for people who have already been found eligible. And then beyond that, you need to be at least 14, but not yet full retirement age, which used to be 65 years of age for everybody, but that goes up now, so 66 in some period of months. So most people will qualify if you're not too old or you're not too young, but you have to already be on benefits. All right, next slide. All right. So within just the eligibility group, unfortunately, there's just not enough WIPA professionals to provide that individualized service for every single eligible person who might be interested in hearing, well, what will happen to my benefits if I go to work? So to make it easier for WIPA projects to manage, they established priorities. And so the WIPA projects, the CWICs who work in these projects, are instructed by their funders, Social Security, to put their efforts in the top priorities within the larger eligibility group. Number one priority, individuals who are currently working or already engaging in self-employment and have a need for and a willingness, right, to provide or to receive individualized benefits counseling. They're number one. So if you've got someone who is already working, let's get them connected with WIPA, top priority. Eligibility group 2 involves folks who maybe aren't already working but are actively pursuing employment or self-employment. They're folks that have a clear employment goal. They're typically folks that are already looking for work. Maybe they're interviewing already, and also would include people who may have a job offer pending. It also would include the bottom group there is folks who've taken an active step to achieve the goal of employment. That could even be that you've just gone to maybe the state VR agency and have got an open case, and maybe you're starting to get some training or upgrade your education to prepare for work. So any of that can qualify an individual. So next slide. One of the things that, before I forget it and leave the information from the last slide, any eligible individual who contacts a WIPA project will get information by phone. The high priority folks are going to be the ones that get that in-depth service. And that's really the meat of what WIPA offers beneficiaries. And that's what's on this slide. So what do these CWICs do for people? Well, first of all, we verify any benefits a beneficiary could receive that could be affected by working. Not just the beneficiary, but if the beneficiary is also married, maybe has minor children who are receiving benefits like Medicaid, that could be affected if that primary beneficiary goes to work. So we verify all of that information to make sure we're 100% clear on what someone gets. The next thing we do is work with the beneficiary to figure out what is it that you need, what services or supports are necessary for you to overcome whatever barriers you face to employment. And that's why we really talk about this as sort of employment-focused benefits counseling, because our mission is to help people understand what happens to their benefits when they go to work, but also to connect with the professionals in the community, the appropriate services that can make that employment goal become a reality. Third, we'll do a lot of explaining, just like John did, but really dig into a specific individual's unique circumstances and say, based on your circumstances, Mr. Beneficiary, and your unique employment goal, this is what you can expect to happen to any of the benefits you receive that could be affected by earned income. So as you can imagine, for some people who have complex situations, this can be long conversations, multiple conversations, and we follow it up with a written summary so that you don't have to remember everything and take copious notes, but you will get something that's called a benefits summary and analysis, a written report that captures all of that important information that we verbally gave you about your unique situation, your type of benefits, your goal, what will happen to your cash payment, what will happen to your medical insurance, what will happen to other benefits you receive like SNAP, right, formerly known as food stamps, or maybe you get rental assistance from your public housing authority, anything like that we will help counsel about. And finally, there at the bottom, we help you identify, use, and manage Social Security work incentives. And as John's presentation indicated, there are many work incentives they can be a little complicated, and many beneficiaries can really use the help of someone to hold their hand and navigate these systems, provide all that information and support so that you can maximize the amount of earnings that you can receive and slowly and gradually become less dependent on the benefits. Next slide. We support beneficiaries with reporting their wages. That can be complicated as well. We never assume that beneficiaries know what to tell Social Security or how to tell it. They often don't. And there's things that happen to people's benefits over time. There are critical touch points in time that benefits can change or where you might need some assistance in answering questions. And a CWIC can help beneficiaries manage some of these ups and downs in their benefits over time. A high priority beneficiary who's receiving WIPA services, our services are not time limited. We can continue to provide information. We're available for beneficiaries to call after that initial sort of upfront intensive kinds of services at any time. So beneficiaries are always welcome to call their assigned CWIC back. We're also good at analyzing health care coverage options so that beneficiaries can determine which options offer the best coverage at the most affordable price. And as you can imagine, this can get a little complicated maybe if you get a full-time job, your employer offers health care, but maybe you also have Medicare and you're not sure. Should I stay enrolled in Part B? Should I let go of it because there's an expense? Should I enroll in my employer-sponsored coverage? I have Medicaid. Is that better? What should I do? And these can be very complex decisions that a CWIC can definitely help with. And then finally, we can help beneficiaries understand benefit problems when they occur. Things happen, right? There's all kinds of things that can happen with forgetting to report something, and you maybe get a little bit of an overpayment, or maybe a check is not received in a month when it should have been, or you get a scary letter and you're not sure what it means. Any of these kinds of things are things that a CWIC can help a beneficiary with. So, and again, WIPA services aren't time limited, so that CWIC is available throughout the future for a beneficiary to call back when a problem arises or a confusing letter arrives in the mail, anything like that. Next slide. There are some limits. We are not permitted, Social Security doesn't permit CWICs to serve individuals who are in application status. Social Security also prohibits WIPA projects from representing beneficiaries during the appeals process. So when maybe a beneficiary applied for benefits and was denied and they're appealing that, there certainly are legal representation, there is legal representation available to beneficiaries, but CWICs cannot provide that. And WIPA counseling is really focused on the effect of work on benefits. And there's a whole bunch of other issues that might come up for a beneficiary that would not be work-related. Now, certainly CWICs will help a beneficiary with any issue they have, work-related or not, once they've engaged in services and, they've received sort of some of that individualized counseling about the impact of work on benefits. They're very happy to help with sort of the non-employment-related issues, problems, things that can come up. But our focus is primarily how work affects those Social Security benefits, the associated health insurance, and any other benefits that could be affected by paid employment. All right, next slide. How do you get services? It's easy. The best way is to call the National Ticket to Work Helpline, and the number here is available on this slide, 1-866-968-7842. And tell the call center agent that you are interested in benefits counseling services. You can even use that acronym WIPA. They're well prepared to explain more to you about what WIPA services entail. And they have training. The call center agents will screen the caller to see if they meet, number one, the eligibility requirements, right? You're already on benefits and you're between the ages of 14 and full retirement. And then they ask a bunch of questions to make sure that you are considered a high priority for that individualized service that the CWIC offers. eligible high priority callers will be referred directly to the WIPA project by the call center agent. So the beneficiary doesn't have to do anything else. The CSR will make that referral. We have electronic ways to submit that information, and the CSR will tell the beneficiary to expect a phone call from that WIPA project. They'll give them the name of the agency and say, expect that call, and be sure that you answer the call so that they can provide you with service. Next slide, please. What other services can the Ticket to Work Helpline provide? Anything that you need to know about the Ticket to Work program, a call center agent is trained to provide you with that information. So whether you, as a beneficiary, you have a ticket that's in assignment or you're just sort of interested in hearing more, you can get information. The CSRs can provide a lot of information about the employment networks. Those are agencies that provide employment services to ticket-eligible beneficiaries. And there's lists of these, and the CSRs will help beneficiaries find out what employment networks are available to cover their area. They'll answer any questions a beneficiary has about their ticket status, meaning, do you have a ticket? Is it assignable? Meaning, can you give it to an employment network so that you can get help? They can talk about the important benefits of the Ticket to Work program, and they can provide basic information and referral services to meet lots of other needs as well. So whether they're employment-related or not, the CSRs are trained to connect a beneficiary with sources of information and referral so that they can get their questions answered or get needs met. Next slide, please. That's it. So,
great. Yeah, thank you so much, Lucy. I think
sure.
Participants feel a whole heck of a lot better knowing that WIPAs are out there and there's help in the community, as you are not being asked to be experts in any particular work incentive, but how we connect you to John, the work incentive coordinators, and the WIPAs. And you are now going to be hearing from Byron and Tish to see how these play out at the agency level, and you'll also hear from a trained CWIC in Pablo as well. Byron, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Pam. So thank you guys for letting us speak today. We're going to be talking about kind of the synergy between SOAR and employment support. Our program here at Easterseals, Colorado, we're basically taking these three supports, these three ideas of SOAR advocacy, benefits counseling, and then employment supports through employment specialists, and trying to merge them into one idea of improving the individual's financial stability, increasing their financial independence, right? We're viewing these as tools to recovery. And SOAR advocacy is the first piece that we're going to talk on. When we're helping a client apply for SOAR benefits, right, for disability benefits, I should say, that's because we're trying to help this client reach a financially stable position. Ultimately, as we've seen with these work incentives before, that's just one small part of an individual becoming financially stable, becoming financially independent. Our goal is for the client to be in the best position they can be. And oftentimes that is not simply being on SSI for their whole life or SSDI, but using these benefits as a tool in part of that recovery, obtaining stable housing, obtaining stable treatment. When it comes to the work incentives at the application stage, though, we're not using work incentives, right? We're using well, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're eventually going to want them to use work incentives. We're eventually going to want them to work towards that financial stability and independence. So when I first start working with a client, I'm talking to them about work. I'm talking to them about how work can help during our application stage, which I'll talk about very soon here, but also about after, if you've been approved for benefits, what your next steps might be. Pablo will focus a lot in on that. Justin will talk to you a lot about his experience in that area. But I'm talking about work early and often. One of the reasons why I'm talking about work is because it can help with a disability application, right? I've been asked a question before, for instance, in some presentations, well, disability is about showing individuals impairments and how they're, how they're impaired and unable to work. So why are you encouraging people to work? Isn't that showing their capabilities? And that's really not the way I look at it. And instead, it's using that work to better show what challenges this person will have out there in the competitive market. The work activity report is a great way to show this individual is working, but here are the ways their condition is impairing them, is preventing them from earning and sustaining substantial gainful activity. Other sources that we get once an individual is working are opinion letters, right? If you're working for an employer, that supervisor might be willing to write a letter discussing how, Jane Doe's impairments are preventing her from lifting more than 10 pounds and how she needs help from other employees in this activity, right? Which is consistent and further backing up the medical opinion letters that we're getting talking about Jane Doe's lumbar spine and how that's limiting her work, right? We're adding credibility to a claim by getting other people in different situations to support the arguments that we're making or the evidence that we're showing through the function report, through the medical records, through an MSR, et cetera. So we're actually gaining more access to information and evidence when we're using works early in a disability case. Ultimately, if you think about the process that a disability examiner at Social Security is going through, they're taking treatment information and they're trying to translate that into functioning. Based on this person's moderate degenerative disc disease, or based on this person, a test that shows tenderness to palpation at the L4, L5 level, right? What does that mean for this person's ability to stand and walk and sit and lift and carry and any number of things, right? If you're getting an opinion letter from a doctor, they're doing the same thing. They're used to treating an individual. They're not used to trying to figure out what a person's functioning is. So they're using their best guess, a reasonable guess, and one based off their experience with the client, but they're using information that they've been taught about treatment and translating it into functioning. Employers, on the other hand, they're all about functioning, right? That's what they're steeped in. So when they're seeing a person work for them, they're thinking about, well, does this person need help lifting objects? Is this person not really good with the general public, so I have to put them in the back because they react poorly to customers? Do they have problems with their coworkers? The employer can talk about those issues that are involved in that person's employment, and the examiner doesn't have to translate, treatment information into functioning. They get purely functional information from the employer. So we find it can be a very powerful piece of information for the examiner to understand this person's limitations. After a decision, right, as I mentioned, I talk about this when I first start working with them. If a client's been approved, I bring it up again, right? I'm starting to talk to them about what supports are available for them if they want to work and how they can reach out and contact me or one of my staff to get them in a position where they're getting benefits counseling, where they're getting an employment specialist, customized employment, IPS employment, et cetera. In that, of course, I'm also giving them examples of how a lot of the work incentives can result in them getting increased income so that they can see right away this is why this is important to them and can be helpful. I'm making that connection right to our benefits counselors or our staff so that I'm making it as easy as possible for them. They don't have to necessarily wait 3 months and then reach out to that person on their own, right, which we know a lot of clients might have difficulty doing, asking for help. I am going to make that warm handoff for them if they and offer that assistance if they want it. And then I'm giving the client options, right? Because our organization, while I think it's great, it might not be the best fit for them. If they live near an independent living center in our area that provides benefits counseling and it's easier for them to access services there, I want to make that connection because ultimately our goal is to help the client be in a better position than they are today, right? From the day I started working with them, I want them to be better off on the day I last worked with them. Looking specifically at the work activity report, again, these are not work incentives at this point, but many of those programs under the work incentives apply to the application stage and help reduce countable income for an individual. So taking an impairment-related work expense, for instance, and using an example that was discussed earlier, we know substantial gainful activity is $1,260 of gross income. If Jane Doe is making $1,300 and has $100 in impairment-related work expenses and we can show that she's got a 25% subsidy, right? We're reducing her countable income below substantial gainful activity. We're showing the examiner this person is not making SGA, and in fact, they're making well below SGA. A person could be making $1,200 a month, and without any work incentives, they're technically making less than substantial gainful activity. They could technically have their application viewed by Social Security and considered for disability. But if you're an examiner and you're seeing someone making $1,200, it's going to run through your mind and whether this person could make just $60 more and make SGA, right? Are they purposely lowering their income? These are things that I thought of when I was working at Social Security. And I'm sure it's going through examiners' minds too when someone is really close to that level. So even in a case where I know the person's making less than SGA, I want to do a work activity report and do a thorough accounting of all the ways they're being supported to show they're not just making slightly under SGA, they're making much less than SGA. And you should know this and consider this. To use Justin, for instance, as an example, and to speak broadly without getting into details of his case, he'd previously worked for several jobs when we filed the application. And he was making well under substantial gainful activity. From a procedural or practical matter, we could have sped through the work activity report, given it hardly any mind, and there wouldn't have been any problem with getting his application before an examiner. We still went through a very detailed work activity report because I wanted to show Social Security that even with all of these supports, all these special conditions or subsidies, impairment-related work expenses, potential unsuccessful work attempts I've had in the past, even with all of these accommodations, and even with his low, he still was not able to sustain an amount of income that was well below substantial gainful activity, right? It's worth going through that process to thoroughly show the examiner how the person's impairments affect them on the job and what that means for disability benefits. So I highly encourage using the work activity report and being thorough in it, even when you know it's not going to be an issue, right? He had one job, for instance, that was a couple months long. That clearly falls under the unsuccessful work attempt. The income was well below substantial gainful activity. Not going to be an issue with this job preventing him from being found disabled, but still we could show that even with all those, he still had lots of supports at that job, and he was ultimately unable to sustain it. So this slide is just really focusing on reminding you these are various programs that in the work incentive area, they mean something. In the application arena, these are ways for me to reduce an individual's countable income and show also at the same time how this person's impairment has affected them on the job. And then finally, I just want to remind you that why I encourage employment. And these are things that I'm discussing with every client too, because I want them to understand and see why employment is going to help them. First and foremost, it's not going to hurt them. It's not going to hurt their case, right? Social Security allows for income under substantial gainful activity, and a person can still be found disabled. But more to the point, even if my client's like, oh, I'll just not work at all, well, Social Security is still going to evaluate whether they can make substantial gainful activity. So they're not really helping themselves by not working. Social Security is still going to go through their due diligence and their process of making sure the person can't. Right? I've had many clients who have not worked and they're still found not disabled, right? Conversely, a lot of my clients, I would say the majority of my clients who do work during the application process are found disabled, and I view work as one of those key elements to show that. Now we can see in the second four reasonings, those really, they're good for the client. Not just good for the case, but good for the client themselves. If you're working and only making $200 in income a month, and your application goes through the initial level, maybe the person's denied and goes through reconsideration, maybe it's denied, maybe it's 2 years later before an administrative law judge. $200 a month is $4,800 over that period. $4,800, I can think of a lot of things that $4,800 can buy. When you're an individual who can't work and make substantial gainful activity, that's a means for them to pay for food. It's a means for them to pay for transportation to consultative examinations or treatment. It's a means for them to maybe pay their mortgage a little bit longer, right? So any income is huge over a long period of time. And the disability process, even at the initial stage where I want to find them disabled, that's still going to take me several months to get to that point on average. Other studies show that increases to self-esteem can actually help a person's functioning, right? Studies show that increases to self-esteem, which working at a manageable level provides, decreases symptoms of depression, decreases symptoms of anxiety, decreases symptoms of fatigue, and decreases symptoms of pain, right? So I want the person to be in a better position than when they started work with me. Their health is important to me. That's one of the reasons why I want to get them on disability benefits, so they can have stable income, stable housing, stable health insurance, working at a manageable level, which might be 5 hours a week, might be 7 hours a week, might be 2 hours a week, right? Might be 20 hours a week. That can help their situation in more ways than just income. It also increases the client's connection to the community. Right now, currently, for instance, I work with a lot of transition age youth, and I know there's a lot of parents who've expressed to me worries about their children in the future, right? Worries that their individual is going to become shut in, is not going to be able to make friends, will not be interacting with other people. They're just going to be staying in the room, and they worry about what that means for them. They worry about depression. They worry about potential suicidal ideation, right? Work provides that connection to the community. It gets an individual out there. It can increase self-esteem, right? So it's providing more than one benefit, again, than just increasing finances. In other studies like IPS, it shows work has been shown to decrease the use and dependence on drugs and alcohol, right? Which is, again, it's good for the person, but also we know drug addiction and alcoholism is considered by Social Security. DAA can be an issue. Well, decreasing the use and dependence on drugs and alcohol can also help us prove the case that DAA is not material and that the person can be found disabled despite potential past use of drugs or alcohol. And then, again, we have last two reasons. Work is good for the case. As I mentioned before, it can increase access to information, documentation, showing how the person's impairment prevents them from sustaining substantial gainful activity. Managers and supervisors who can write opinion letters. Work activity reports that we can write that show how a person's special accommodations, despite these special accommodations, the person still was not able to make or sustain substantial gainful activity. And, you know, working in the appeals council in the past, when I talked to other appeals judges at Social Security, they've mentioned that they like to see clients working, that they view that as a good credibility booster, right? This is an individual who's trying to do everything they can, and when they're only making $400 a month, that means something to that judge, that they're trying to make money, but they can only make this much. So working can actually increase your credibility before the Social Security adjudicator, whether that's at the initial level, the administrative law judge level, the appeals council level, or beyond.
Byron, this is great information, and I think we thank you for making that connection that work is possible even during the application process and even post-eligibility working after receiving benefits. So just to lead in now to Pablo and Justin, since we have about 20 minutes left, and we want to make sure we have enough time for Pablo and Justin, and also to take a few questions as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Pablo.
Great. Thank you, Pam. So my name is Pablo Sandoval, and I am the Senior Director of Employment Services at Easterseals, Colorado. But I wear many hats here at Easterseals. I oversee all of the evidence-based practice for employment programs. I oversee disability benefit services, and I'm also a certified or a community partner work incentive counselor. I received my training and certification through Virginia Commonwealth University, or VCU. I think it's important to mention, because it was discussed earlier, what a WIPA program is. Easterseals is not a WIPA program. We are a community agency that provides a variety of services. We have an extensive employment program, and of course, all of what I mentioned earlier are under that employment unit. So Byron has already talked a little bit about our tools for recovery. I don't know how many agencies are out there where you have your SOAR Application Assistance Program, your Benefits Counseling Program, and Employment Supports all in one unit. We're pretty proud of that fact, and I know that we're the only agency in the state of Colorado that does that. So, of course, we provide a complete BSNA, or Benefit Summary and Analysis, to any individuals that are referred to our Benefits Counseling Program. Once again, our goal is financial stability and independence, much like Byron discussed earlier. Our analysis includes current benefits, the financial situation of the individual, and the effect of different income levels from employment, what they'll have on the individual's future financial situation. Oops, sorry, going backwards. So much like a WIPA program, probably the difference is that we have several employment specialists and job coaches on staff, and they're well-versed in benefits and work incentives. Many of them have been trained internally on the basics of benefits counseling. Some of them have gone through the introductory course offered through Virginia Commonwealth University. The process for benefits counseling starts with a verification of benefits, much like what's been discussed. We get a benefits planning query from the Social Security Administration, and then we also look at other federal, state, and local benefits. So in Colorado, through our partnership with some of our county Department of Human Services, we have access to CBMS, which is the Colorado Benefits Management System. This allows us to verify those benefits and to determine what an individual might have beyond Social Security. We provide assistance in understanding complicated benefit scenarios, how earnings and earning goals are going to affect each benefit and how it ties into the full picture. Of course, we include wage reporting information, and then we provide long-term supports as needed. Many times the individuals that come to us come back to us for additional questions related to their benefits situation and their work situation. And then lastly, each beneficiary here at Easterseals receives a benefits portfolio, which includes a comprehensive BSNA, the calculation sheets that are associated with SSI, trial work period tracking sheets for SSDI, and then any other supporting documents that pertain to that individual situation. Let's talk a little bit about our employment services. I mentioned earlier that we focus on evidence-based practices for employment, and we use two primary programs. We use IPS-supported employment. IPS, of course, stands for Individual Placement and Support. It was a model that was initially designed for individuals with severe mental illness. What we've been able to do here at Easterseals, Colorado, is expand the model and use it with other disability groups and with other employment programs. That really is our focus. At the present time, we have an IPS IDD program in the Denver metro area. We have an IPS IDD dual diagnosis, so IDD and mental health issues in the Colorado Springs area. And then we have an IPS TANF program also in the Denver metro area. And we run these programs just like the programs that are designed for mental health programs. And we follow the same 8 practice principles. I think we all know what the definition is of supported employment, but basically we're looking at competitive integrated employment for the individuals that we serve. The other program that we have is customized employment. Once again, most of our staff are either trained or certified in customized employment. It's based on a discovery process, and it's driven by a customized plan developed by the applicant's strengths and needs and interests. It focuses on tasks rather than job titles to negotiate an essential job responsibility. And then specific job duties are negotiated with employers voluntarily to customize a job. As with IPS, the focus is competitive integrated employment. So let's talk a little bit about Justin. And you're going to get to hear from Justin here in a few minutes. But Justin is 23 years old. He received SOAR services through our Disability Benefit Services program, and he was approved for SSI in March of 2018. As Byron mentioned, he talks to the individuals that he works with about employment from the very beginning. And almost immediately, Justin was referred to one of our IPS-supported employment programs here at Easterseals, Colorado. He received direct job placement and job coaching, and he eventually got a job at King Soopers Grocery, which is the Kroger affiliate here in Colorado. His employment specialist knew that Justin had been allowed the SSI benefit, and almost immediately as well, she referred him to me for benefits counseling. And so as a result of that, Justin received a full BSNA addressing SSI and the associated work incentives. And I can tell you that we talked about the general income exclusion, the earned income exclusion, the half earnings exclusion. Justin at that time, because of his age, he did ask about the student earned income exclusion, so we provided information on that incentive for him, but of course he no longer applies or qualifies for that due to his age. There were no federal or state local benefits associated with Justin's situation. We addressed a sample impairment-related work expense. We discussed expedited reinstatement, a PASS plan, 1619B for Medicaid. We talked about Medicaid buy-in and about Medicaid waivers because Justin does receive services through the Medicaid waivers here in Colorado. Lastly, we talked about the Ticket to Work program, ABLE accounts, and then we talked about additional services that would be available to him through the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. So let's talk to Justin. Hi, Justin. How are you?
Doing good.
Okay. Can everybody hear us okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So once again, Justin received not only SOAR application assistance services, he received benefits counseling, and then he received employment supports through one of our IPS programs. Justin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, as you mentioned, I am 23 years old, and I've lived in Denver pretty much almost my whole life. Some of my hobbies include from video games to skateboarding to weightlifting, that kind of stuff.
Okay. And so how did you hear about the services that are offered through Disability Benefit Services, the program that Byron works with?
Well, I've heard about it from my parents who were recommended these services by a consultant by the name of Betty Lehman. And it's fortunate I've heard about it because obviously I'm thankful for it.
Okay. Good. So can you tell us a little bit about the employment services that you got at Easterseals? I think you worked with an employment specialist by the name of Beth. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So we met a few times once a week so they can get to know me better. After a while, they helped me get started on getting a resume and cover letter ready. revised it. There's more room for improvement in those. Then helped assist with finding a job, which we started looking around extensively for afterwards. Right after that, they also got me prepared for job interview and was a good reference.
Okay.
For the job. As soon as I got the job, they also took another step and provided job coaching along the way for a few weeks.
Okay. Good. And that was the job at King Soopers, correct?
This is correct.
Okay. So what's your current status? Are you working?
Well, I'm currently unemployed, but I am working right now.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about why you're not working at this very moment?
I got another job at Elitch Gardens, which is an amusement park in downtown area of Denver, as a ride operator, but due to COVID-19, and the general manager there was not able to open the park for the season, so all of our jobs got cut. And I found another one shortly after at Amazon as a warehouse worker, but due to the travel commute and the health conditions there, it was not a good fit in the long run.
Okay.
So I was back to where I was.
Okay.
Searching.
And so I understand that you are now looking to come back to Easterseals for some additional employment supports. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay. Okay. So one of the things that'll be happening here in the very near future, Justin, is we will connect you again with one of our employment specialists. And I know that there's a plan to do some career exploration with you and to continue the job search for you. So that should be happening here shortly. So tell us a little bit about benefits counseling. How did that happen?
All right. So I met with Byron for weeks, also once per week. It was a lot of work to put in, but what he did was assist with all the application paperwork, let all of us know the right documentations and the references that we needed for the application, and he also knew the right words to also use on it.
Okay.
And then his entirety, and he was very skilled at it because the application was approved on the very first time.
Okay. So that's your application for disability benefits, correct?
That is correct.
What about benefits counseling? When you started working with me, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right after I got the benefits, you helped provide me with the benefits portfolio binder with all the information regarding the benefits, and you also helped bring a better understanding on Social Security income. Then you also provided resources and extra benefits information that they may not have covered, like the Medicaid, for example, and some of the other things like how to report the wages and so on.
Okay.
But it was all very helpful.
Okay, great. Great to hear. So you're looking for a job again, so that's a little bit about what your plans are for the future.
That is correct.
Okay.
That's one of my...
Do you plan to live on your own someday?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm also planning on trying to save up for an apartment eventually.
Okay.
But that might be a little bit difficult. I think where the prices are kind of rising again, unfortunately.
Housing in Denver is quite expensive, yes. So, okay. Well, Justin, I want to thank you for being here today. Thank you for coming and talking with us a little bit about your experiences here at Easterseals, Colorado. You did sign all the necessary release forms that allowed you to participate with us here today, so I want to thank you for doing that as well. Pam, I think that's it for us right now with this, so I'll turn it back to you, Pam.
Thank you so much, Byron, Pablo, and Justin, for sharing your employment journey with us. I wish we had more time, and I know we will continue this conversation soon because it is just so important. And I know Justin is going to find his dream job, and I'm glad that he has the continued support of you all at Easterseals. And I think this slide says it all. Benefit planning is essential, and I hope that the SOAR community who's listening knows that there are experts out there that you can help, who can give you and your clients help with similar types of services that Justin has received too. So we are out of time, and you know that we have tons of resources on the SOAR website about how to have these conversations about employment. We have many questions that we weren't able to get today, but they will be answered offline. We'll be sending them to our panelists, so you will get a response. And if you have a question that you weren't able to ask us, just simply email SOAR at SOAR@PRAINC.com, and we will be sure to get your question answered if you weren't able to pose it here. We just have just so much information, as you can see. We are so thrilled to have had such excellent speakers from SSA, John Marshall, and Lucy from VCU, and also Byron, Pablo, and Justin. We do appreciate it, and we hope to continue this conversation very, very soon. Here are some of our resources that you can utilize. Just remember that employment is possible. Help bust those myths. You heard a great story here about that. So again, good luck. Please reach out to us at the TA Center anytime, and please feel free to forward your question to us if you didn't get a chance to listen. I didn't get a chance to list it here. And again, remember to look at your employment programs within your agencies and within your communities and make that connection as well. So at the end of this webinar, there is an evaluation that you'll get sent there upon leaving WebEx. So again, please do the evaluation. And I just wanted to remind everyone to have a great rest of your day and joining us here. Thank you very much. Have a great night. And thanks to all the presenters.